All right, so we're here in Jackrabbit, and you have all these different instances from a hierarchy perspective of the different chat threads that you can go into. You can connect to folders in your local machine, which you would do right here. You can change your LLM provider to whatever you think is the best out of this dropdown, and obviously you can also change the reasoning effort. I'm using 4UP for demonstration purposes because it's pretty fast and it will allow us to go through this relatively seamlessly. But I'm going to cancel out of that. So we're going to start off with the main thread. So a main thread is kind of like your traditional chat window that you'd see in any LLM. And this is where you ask your first question. So we'll say, what is DNS, for example? And while we wait for this to come back, we will also highlight that there are 4 different tabs that exist inside of each thread: context, summary, authoritative source, and suggestive action. Now, I want to be very clear here that not all of these will be applicable to every topic that you put into these LLMs, but it's mainly kind of targeted towards engineering or technical concepts that are, I guess, inside the domain of software engineers or network engineers. But this really can be used by everybody, I would say, this application. So don't feel like it's exclusively towards those job branches. But you have context, which is essentially the answer that you would receive from an LLM of using the model that you're using. You have a summary, which has basically a condensed version of that context. You have the authoritative source, and in this case, it's referencing an RFC. And then you have a suggestive action, which is basically just a more of a practical, usually command or something, just some way of approaching the situation based on what your question is. So as you saw briefly there, if we go back to, let's say, context here, and we want to look into what a top-level domain is, for example, without moving away from the original intent of what is DNS, we will branch, and we will see this new branch here, which is code in green, and we'll say what is a TLD. Now, while that's working, we can also go over here and say, what are the most beneficial books to read on DNS? And now, as you can see, this popped up over here in the meantime, and we also got our answer over here regarding that question. So you can already start to understand the value add of keeping things organized and inherently kind of categorized based on what you're working on. So I could go further into here and say GTLDs. Since it's already related to TLDs, we'll do something else. We'll say, what is ICANN? That's a whole different topic. And we'll say, what is, I can type right, what is ICANN? 2 N's. And then so basically you can think of this as a way of organizing your thought process into vertical fields, which I'm not saying this is anything revolutionary here, but it's basically taking branching the way that the current LLM interfaces do it and providing more of a seamless way for your workflow, or at least for my workflow in this case. And like I said before, summaries and authoritative sources and suggestive actions all are listed here, and you get varying levels of helpfulness from them. But one of the cool things here is that, as you can see here, when I highlighted the ICANN, it showed the orange highlight with the orange text. You always know where it came from. So you can see the orange dot right here. And there's this a green dot up here for the domain TLD. So it helps you better kind of trace back to where you started off with these conversations. So in this case, we'll go over to here, click on this. And okay, that's a PR I need to do. But it should bring you right back to the tab here. But anyways, you can see right here, that's where it's based out of. So let's say we want to compare the contents of ICANN right here back to the original thread of what is DNS, all over in the corresponding responses down here. We can say relate to origin, and it will provide a thinking process. ICANN connects back to DNS, the original topic, as it oversees the domain name system. And I'm not going to read the rest of this, but you get the general gist of it. And you can also shift click both of these windows and say synthesize these two, which uses Command J or Control J. I'd imagine Control J. And you will see a question you can now ask and say, how is this applicable to DNS? It'll take both of these into context when it answers that question, and it gives you the following response, which you can obviously read as well. So let's say you're kind of seeing much of visual jank here on your screen and you don't like it. You can go to tidy up to make it more organized. You can lock to lanes so that you can't drag around, versus before where you could drag things around however you see fit. So I'll tidy again. I'll lock this to lanes, and then I will also minimize, and it minimizes all downstream children, if you want to call it that, of that node or that branch. Alternatively, you can also click out of each individual one to keep your environment organized. And there you have it. Well, now let's say, for example, you want to do a whole new thread and you're just tired of working on DNS. You can go to File, New Thread, and a new one opens up down here. We'll just say, what is HTTP? And then we'll do this. Who is this? And what is his educational background? So as you can start to see, you can very quickly reference different information and kind of cross-correlate and drag around as you see fit. Obviously, in this case, I'm in the locked lanes. Also, there is the dark mode, which I like the dark mode. I don't like being flashbanged by a screen, but I digress. And then the overview, which allows you to kind of see the progression, and this is still in development, of your process that you're going through. But that's essentially it. I hope you can have found value in this, and you can jump to different trees here. We have these two available right now, so if you wanted to open up these other chains back up, we can click on this. And then if we didn't like the results we got here, and we wanted to delete any of these permanently, we could use this little trash can symbol right here and delete. So there we have it. This is Jackrabbit, and I hope you guys have enjoyed. Feel free to PR, submit PRs to add in features that you like. I really just wanted to start this application as a way to help the community out, and I'd love to see what we can make out of it. So feel free to comment below what you think, and I hope this helps. All right, thanks, bye.